Good afternoon, everybody. It's Meredith again. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing some pressing experiments. I don't know about any of you, but I've found the historical flat irons recently really fascinating. So antique flat irons, they're kind of shaped like a medieval heraldic shield. Mine is currently on the iron and it's warming up, so we can do these experiments. I'm not going to pick up a hot iron, just to wave it at you. You'll see it plenty here in just a few minutes. But I just wanted to give you some background and context because doing the research on these was really fun. And rabbit holes. We all love rabbit holes, right? So the beginnings of ironing and pressing out garments, at least in Europe, seems to have started around the migration era, Viking era, and you're going to find women's grave goods, including pressing boards in some instances, where they've got the smoothing board and possibly a rock. There was one reference to smoothers being made out of glass, and just using that to kind of put pleats in or get giant wrinkles out of garments. So it goes way back. Ironing is nothing new, which was kind of mind-blowing for me. One of the other things that you see as you go into the medieval period and you're finding these big manor houses that want to have gorgeous, freshly pressed white tablecloths because they're a huge status symbol when you're in a feast hall. They're hanging those, either stretching them out on frames. Occasionally you'll see different mechanisms like that, pinning them up. There was even one reference I saw to these rollers that almost look like the ringers that I saw in Victorian washing bins back when I was a kid. So in the Middle Ages, you saw the linen smoothers start to become flat irons, and that's what we're going to be playing with today. Because the style of this basic flat iron is actually going to carry through the 19th century in some form or other. It may fall in and out of vogue based on some of the research I was seeing, but the basic idea was still there, and some people still prefer to use them quite frequently. So it's completely made out of metal. It's got the little base, little squiggly handle, and I honestly didn't see a lot of references to how to use them in a lot of the household texts that I was starting to do research on. I went through a bunch of medieval and Renaissance housewifery manuals. It was like good housekeeping for the Middle Ages. So we have reprints and translations of some of these manuals from about 15th century forward, and I didn't find any references to using them in there. But I've seen enough other research to say that they were existing at least by the 16th century. So maybe it's a professional laundress thing where you're not telling people at home how to use this, or just knowledge that you hand down from parent to child, like today how to scrub a pan, or you figured it out on your own. Because one thing that I expect to find in this experiment is there's going to be a lot of tactile knowledge you only pick up by doing it. So we'll see if that hypothesis holds true. But like I was saying before, these irons stay around through the 19th century. The one that I picked up at an antique store a couple months ago actually is from the late 19th century, is my understanding from the antique dealer. If you know more about it, feel free to tell me about it in the comments section down below. But it's cast iron and it's actually smoking right now. We are going to go turn off the heat, or at least turn it down. Experiment starts now. So I started to get all of the sewing room set up in here to play with this iron. Put it on my lovely little modern hot plate, and the thing is actually smoking. So that's probably some of the oils and stuff left over from when I was reseasoning it. I'm probably going to turn down the heat because I just don't think it's a good idea to iron with something that's smoking. I mean, look at this. So one of the things that they were saying when I was reading different blog posts and different historical documents is that this is more of a learned skill. They can tell you a little bit, but there's a tactile sense of this that you have to learn. Like, there's one comment that someone made about if you hear it sizzling, it actually is ready to go. So we're gonna see what we can do to get this going. I'm not sure if that smoking's getting better or worse, but we're gonna give this a try. Safety precautions I have put in place for you guys. I've moved the curtains well out of the way of my heating element, and I have a giant bowl of water. Partially this is because I want to try and sprinkle some water on the fabric samples that I'm ironing. That way I can try and use a little bit of steam action, but also if something starts sparking or getting a little smoldery, I want to know I have something I can use to put this out. So, just to kind of give you guys a heads up, you do want to use some sort of pad, whether it's a hot pad that you use in your kitchen. I made this out of some wool rayon blended felt to try and prevent myself from having fire issues. But it's just 4 layers of that I then stitched together with some really big basting stitches. Looks kind of homey, but it's been working really well, so I don't feel the heat when I pick this up. Okay. So, first up on here, we're gonna try some thick pieces of fustian. So fustian, if you're not familiar with it, is a thicker, more canvas weight linen cotton blend. Linen's going one way, the cotton goes the other, and it creates this really durable, awesome fabric. In the 18th century, we see references to shirts being made out of this, more like working shirts. When I'm working with it, I'm usually using it for interlining and stays, and bodices, that sort of thing. So, just because that is making me nervous, I know, we're gonna watch this all back. It's gonna go just fine, and kind of laugh at me being so scared of this. But it's essentially fire. I am using a modern hot plate because I live in an apartment, as you can see from the lovely window right here, trying to get some natural light on this. But I did not think that my landlords would be terribly pleased with the idea of me going out and setting a fire in my apartment to try and do this. So, a couple modern adaptations. That actually worked really well. Okay. Kind of steaming, but perfectly pressed. They've actually got some more body to them now. I think that's probably the linen getting stiffer from being ironed. But there you go. That's a good start. So next thing we're going to try, since I managed to not scorch any of the fustian, we're going to try some silk scraps. Since silk and wool are going to naturally stay away from fire if they can help it, we're going to try that dry because I don't want to get water spots all over the silk. also worked really well. It's making quick work of this, which I was surprised by. So, this is leftover bits from one of my favorite dresses, and it's been balled up in the bottom of my scrap bin for years, so that's pretty impressive. The wool doesn't really have any major wrinkles to it. But I'm gonna see what this does to some of the wool. Oh wow, it is getting kind of sticky to the wool. Like it's trying to scorch or stick to the iron. Okay. And there's the burned wool smell. Oh my goodness. Oh, I wonder if this isn't a pure wool. And well, that's one way to fiber test something. This isn't a 100% wool like I was told. This is definitely a blend. Because now it's got a crinkly plastic feel on one side and wool on the other. So know your fabrics, I guess, and know their fiber content before you're doing this. I'm not even going to try and do this with any of the synthetics knowingly, just because I have a sneaking suspicion it's going to end in melted crap all over the iron. You guys saw me spend weeks trying to clean. There you go. We want to make sure we're keeping it clean, apparently, according to all the documentation and advice I read. So, much lighter hand on the wool and water. And it's mostly surviving. Okay. Yeah. I'm wondering though, could I press some pleats into this and make like a little pleated swatch thingy? Just using another scrap, ironically, of that same wool. That's what I've been using to distribute water over these samples. Nope. Alright, that did not work. The plastic content, I think, in this is too high. It just keeps sticking to the iron. And it is super crunchy feeling. Okay. So, 0 out of 10. Do not recommend doing this with anything that is a synthetic blend. Maybe we could get the silk scrap to do something fun and pleated. Pause this and go find some silk pins. Okay, trying this with some pleated silk using metal silk pins. Just gently kind of tapping it in place. Fabric does get hot if this thing is on there for a minute. Okay. The little pleats actually look pretty good. Whoop. And we're not touching those metal pins. I think you would need to, if you're pinning in pleats, let this cool off before you start unpinning it. This is definitely hotter than my electric iron gets. But, oh. Let's try a box pleat, maybe? See what we get. Oh, okay. I think some of the charred wool is still on here. So when I went to go and iron this little scrap of linen, it's started leaving residue that was definitely not there before. This is probably why we start getting things like pressing cloths being used as irons get more popular in the 18th century. Sorry, not 18th, 19th century. Alright, just giving you guys a quick tour of our setup here, now that the iron's not smoking. I've got a modern hot plate set up, my iron with my little pad, a bowl of water with some scraps of wool from my scrap bin to absorb water and then help me spread it out on fabric. And these are the scraps that we've ironed today on my mini ironing board from college that I believe was also my mother's ironing board when she was in college that I was gifted. But you'll see the wool is kind of worse for wear after I melted the plastic parts I didn't know existed in there. Probably not that awesome. Let me get this to refocus. There we go. The silk did really, really well, and I also want to tell you guys I never ended up using any water on it just to keep myself from getting water spots. You see there's one tiny one over here, probably from some water being left on the ironing board. So if you're going to use this, make sure that you're wiping down your ironing board really well between fibers. The fustian has held up really well. Linen fabrics always seem to wrinkle if you just look at them funny. But the fustian, after it was pressed, has been moved around the sewing room quite a bit, even used as a press cloth at one point. With no real wear or anything else, there's no staining on it. That was super fun. And then there's the handkerchief weight linen. So this goes into more doing fine ironing and fine items. I'm definitely going to advise using a press cloth and maybe not ironing the bottom of your iron as much as I probably did. Maybe do a light coating and make sure before you start heating it that you wipe that thing down really well. Maybe go at it with a file really lightly or something like that. But this section right here is all staining from when the iron stuck to the wool and burned some of the wool and plastic fibers. So that is all plastic wool char bits, and that is where it scorched the fabric because I was not being super careful. So be careful when you're dealing with stuff. You don't want to scorch your linens. But all in all, it took the pressing really well. So let's see here. We've got an awesomely pressed seam, perfect for then doing some hemming. And that compared to the natural state of this side with all of the wrinkles. Freshly pressed, nasty. So it's an awesome little side-by-side. Well, everybody, I hope you've enjoyed watching me try to experiment with the antique iron that's cooling off over here. It's a little custom trivet I picked up at the antique store with it. I've had a lot of fun with it, and if you've done a similar experiment, let me know. I would love to see what kind of pitfalls you guys have been coming across, tips or tricks. Have you tried this on one of your historical garments that you've made? How did you get up the courage to do that? Because I'm still a little bit scared to do it myself, to be honest. It's a goal, but I'm a little bit scared my ironing skills aren't up to snuff yet. And yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. I do try and post it out here once a week. If it's busier in the holidays, it'll probably be a little bit less or a little bit more. We'll see. Maybe we'll do a vlog around Christmas time about sewing Christmas presents. I don't know. If that's something you're interested in, let me know. But in the meantime, I wish you guys all a very awesome weekend. I hope you get out there, do some fun sewing, and have a great day. Getting ready to talk to people and not make myself sound like a dork. Hi. I should close the door. You shouldn't be in here while we're doing things with hot irons. Oh, is that the outside? Like this. Let me finish and we'll go outside. Outside.